The morning I handed my brother a set of keys to my house, he pulled me into a hug on the front porch and said he'd never forget what I did for him. He was right about that part. What I forgot was that generosity without boundaries is just an open door for people to walk through and then lock behind them. My name is Natalie. I'm 33 years old. I work as a project manager for a tech consulting firm based in Toronto, and my job has me on the road 3 or 4 weeks at a stretch. Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, Halifax, sometimes all 4 in the same month. I've been doing this for 6 years. I'm good at it. I've worked hard to get here, and I've learned to be precise about things. Timelines, contracts, what's in writing and what isn't. 2 years ago, my parents' house was about to be lost. My dad had been dealing with health problems since the previous spring. Hospital stays, specialist appointments, the slow drain of it all, and the mortgage on a semi-detached in Etobicoke they'd owned for 25 years had fallen behind. The bank was using words like power of sale. My mother was calling me every second night, not asking for help exactly, but in that way she has of talking around the thing she needs until someone else offers it. I stepped in. I paid off the remaining balance, which was roughly $142,000, and had the deed transferred into my name. My parents moved into a retirement community in Mississauga, something they'd genuinely been wanting for 2 years, but couldn't make work financially. The house became mine. My brother and his wife were newly married and renting a cramped apartment in Scarborough at the time. I offered to let them stay in the house. It wasn't a grand gesture. The place would have sat empty for months at a stretch while I was traveling, and it seemed wasteful, and I thought, I know exactly how this sounds. That family meant something. That you could extend that kind of trust to your own brother and have it respected. My only condition was simple: keep the utilities in their name, maintain the property, and understand that I would be coming home to my own house when I needed to. No rent, no formal lease. I had a maintenance agreement drawn up through my lawyer that outlined the responsibilities clearly, including a clause. One I had specifically asked for, that I'll come back to. My brother signed it without reading it carefully. I watched him flip through the pages and thought he should slow down. I didn't say anything. That was my first mistake. For 18 months, things looked fine from a distance. When I came home between projects, I'd stay for a week. Sometimes, too, I'd sleep in my old room, pick up groceries, sit around the kitchen table with them. My nephew, who was 2 years old, had the bedroom that used to be my parents'. It felt like something close to family. But small things started to shift. My things would be moved without explanation. My bathroom cabinet was cleared out and restocked with their products. Once I came home to find my winter coats in a garbage bag in the basement, replaced by boxes of my sister-in-law's craft supplies. When I brought it up, she said she'd been reorganizing. My brother said nothing. I let it go because I had a flight in 2 days, and it felt like the wrong fight to pick. The last trip was 3 weeks in Vancouver, late October. Brutal project. Changing scope, demanding client, a hotel that smelled like mildew. I texted my brother twice during those 3 weeks. No response either time. I didn't think much of it. He was never much for texting. I landed at Pearson on a Thursday night. 40 minutes in a cab. Wet streets. Halloween decorations still hanging on the houses along the road. When we pulled up, every light in the house was on. I could hear music from the curb. My key didn't fit. I stood there trying the lock twice more, thinking I'd grabbed the wrong key ring, which I hadn't. The deadbolt had been replaced entirely. A new fixture. My key turned without catching. Taped to the door was an envelope. Inside was a single typed sheet with a heading centered at the top. Notice of established residency and primary occupancy. My sister-in-law had written it herself. The formatting was off. The language was trying to sound legal and mostly missing. It stated that she and my brother had been the exclusive primary occupants of the property for 18 months. It cited Ontario long-term occupancy provisions. It described my stays as intermittent visits that did not constitute residency, and near the bottom, It said, "My personal effects have been relocated to the garage for collection at your convenience." I read it 3 times. From inside the house, I could hear laughter. Real, warm, settled laughter. My brother's voice, then my sister-in-law's, then the sound of glasses. They were having a dinner party in my dining room on a Thursday. I walked around to the side of the house and opened the garage. My things were in cardboard boxes and bags, stacked against the wall. Not thrown out, technically, but arranged like they'd been cleared away from a storage unit someone was done with. My grandmother's blanket chest, dark oak, iron hinges, the thing I've been moving from place to place since she died, was sitting on the cold concrete floor with my winter clothes piled on top of it. A framed photograph of my parents at their 30th anniversary had been pushed face first against the wall. I stood in that garage for what felt like a long time. My hands were shaking, not from the cold. I pulled out my phone. I had my lawyer's number pulled up before I'd even thought about it. I was going to call the police. I was going to call him, and then I was going to knock on that door and make every single thing that was in my chest at that moment completely clear. Then I put my phone back in my pocket. Not because I was afraid. Not because I didn't have the legal right to have them removed that same night. I did. I knew I did. Something shifted in that cold garage. Looking at my grandmother's chest on concrete, and what I felt underneath the rage was something else. Something sharp and very still. They had just signed and taped to my door every piece of paper I would need. I picked up 2 bags. I called a cab. I walked to the curb without making a sound. 2 years before any of this happened, I had quietly purchased a condo unit on the 14th floor of a building in Liberty Village. 2 bedrooms, good light, clean lines. I bought it during a brief dip in the market with the intention of eventually renting it out. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone in my family. It wasn't a secret exactly. It just hadn't come up, and I'd grown used to keeping the details of my finances to myself. The family had opinions about my money as it was. That night, it became the place I came home to. I set my bags down inside the front door, turned on the lights, stood in the kitchen for a moment looking out at the city. Orange glow on gray sky. I made tea I didn't really taste and sat at the kitchen table. My phone was already going. My brother had started a group message. Me, our mother and aunt, 2 cousins. He'd posted a photo of the dinner party in my dining room. Candles lit, wine on the table, people laughing, captioned, "Finally made this place feel like a real home. Been a long time coming." My sister-in-law added heart emojis. My mother replied, "So proud of you both. You've worked so hard for this." Not a word to me. An hour later, my lawyer called. I'd texted him a photo of the notice before leaving. He was, I'll say, energized. He said, "Natalie, that document isn't a legal eviction. It's not even close to being legally enforceable. But it is a signed, dated declaration of primary occupancy that they voluntarily created and delivered to you. Combined with your maintenance agreement, I can have you back in that house with a court order before the weekend." He wanted to file for an emergency possession order that night. "No," I said. He waited. "Not yet. I need you to listen, because I want to do this in a way that actually sticks." He listened. Here's what my brother and his wife had never understood about the maintenance agreement they signed 2 years earlier, because they'd never read it carefully. There was a clause in Section 7. I had asked my lawyer to include it specifically because I was already aware, even then, of what could happen when you give someone access to a property and leave yourself exposed. The clause stated clearly that any party who formally declared themselves the sole primary occupant of the property and denied the registered owner's right of access or return would assume full responsibility for all outstanding and ongoing property obligations, including municipal property tax arrears, utility debts, home insurance continuity, and any outstanding city bylaw compliance orders. What had been building up at the house since September, while my brother was ignoring the mail? The City of Toronto property tax bill for the year, $7,400, sent in September. Never opened, as far as we could tell. A compliance order from the city, issued in August, requiring that the original knob and tube electrical wiring in the basement be brought up to current code. The order gave 90 days. The 90 days had elapsed. The licensed electrician I'd consulted earlier that year had quoted the work at $9,200. The home insurance policy had lapsed. The renewal form had been mailed to the house. It was never forwarded to me. I'd been trying to sort it out remotely for 6 weeks. Total outstanding, just over $16,600, not counting the insurance gap. The notice my sister-in-law had typed and signed. Exclusive primary occupants. Right there at the top was, from a documentation standpoint, exactly what we needed. My lawyer registered it with the city assessor's office alongside my deed and the maintenance agreement. He contacted the insurance provider to clarify the occupancy situation. He filed the occupancy declaration with the city's bylaw office as the formal record of who held responsibility for the outstanding compliance order. Then we waited. I went to work. I caught up on sleep. I had my closest friend help me retrieve the things that mattered most from the garage one afternoon while my brother and his wife were out. I still had legal access to the property as the registered owner, and I exercised it without drama. My grandmother's chest came to Liberty Village. My winter clothes. A few boxes of things that were mine. I left the group chat notifications off and didn't read the messages. 3 weeks after that November night, the letters arrived at the house. The property tax office. The city bylaw compliance office. Both addressed to my sister-in-law by name, because she was the signatory on the filed occupancy declaration, and her name was now on record as the responsible party at that address. 3 days after that, my phone rang at 6:47 in the morning. My brother. He didn't say hello. He said, "What did you do?" I said, "Good morning." He said there was a bill for over $16,000 from the city. He said it was addressed to his wife. He said he didn't understand what was happening. I told him, calmly, property tax arrears and an outstanding bylaw compliance order. The basement wiring. The city had been waiting since August. "That's your responsibility," he said. "You own the house." "I owned the house," I said. "When your wife filed that occupancy declaration on November 4th and denied my access to my own property, she triggered Clause 7 of the maintenance agreement you signed. The liability transferred. That's in the document." Silence, then quietly, "You need to fix this." "I can't," I said. "You're the occupants of record." I heard my sister-in-law in the background, her voice low and tight. Then my brother again. "Then, sign the house over to us so we can sort it out ourselves." I said I'd call him back. I did not call him back. 12 days later, I received a purchase offer from a property investment firm I had reached out to the previous week. They were expanding their residential portfolio in Etobicoke and had offered full current market value, cash, with a 30-day close. Clean deal, no conditions. I signed the sale agreement on a Tuesday. On Thursday morning, my brother and his wife appeared in the lobby of my office building near Union Station. My brother was holding the city notices. His wife stood beside him with her arms crossed. My mother was there too, and that part I hadn't expected, and it was the hardest part. I came downstairs with a manila envelope. My mother spoke first. She looked like she hadn't slept well. She said I needed to sort this out, that my brother was facing serious financial consequences, that I was the one who owned the house, and it wasn't right for me to let things get to this point. I looked at her for a moment. I thought about the heart emojis in the group chat. Then I opened the envelope and put 3 documents on the lobby table. The deed to the house, registered in my name alone. A copy of the occupancy notice my sister-in-law had typed and signed and taped to my door. The executed sale agreement signed 2 days prior. "I don't owe the city anything," I said. My voice was steady. I had practiced this, not because I was afraid of losing my composure, but because I wanted to be clear. Every word landing exactly where it was meant to. The occupancy declaration your wife created and signed is on file with the city. It was her document. She wrote it, she signed it, she served it. It triggered the maintenance clause. The obligations transferred. My sister-in-law started to speak. I'm not finished, I said. As for signing the house over, I can't do that. I sold it on Tuesday. The buyer is a property investment firm. They take possession in 30 days. You'll receive formal notice from my lawyer this afternoon. You have 30 days to vacate. My brother stared at me. He's 6 years older, taller, and he had a way of taking up space in a room that had always made me feel smaller when we were growing up. He did not make me feel small that morning. That's Mum and Dad's house, he said. It was, I said. Then Mum and Dad couldn't keep it, and I bought it. I have the deed. I have the mortgage discharge. I have the transfer documents. You signed a maintenance agreement the day I gave you the keys. All of it is in order. My mother put her hand over her mouth. I don't think she had fully understood, until that moment, what had actually happened 2 years ago. That I had paid for that house outright, what that meant in terms of what I was owed and what I was giving up. How much did you sell it for? My brother asked. That's not your concern, I said. He said I was doing this to punish them. That I had always resented him. That I was making him and his family homeless over a misunderstanding. I let him finish. Then I said, I stayed silent the night I found my things in the garage. I didn't knock on the door. I didn't call the police, even though I was entitled to. I picked up my bags and I handled this properly through the right channels. That's the whole of what happened here. I picked up the envelope. I went back upstairs. The sale closed on December 18th. After the original purchase cost, legal fees, and closings adjustments were cleared, I deposited $284,000. I looked at the number in my account for a long time. My brother and his wife moved to a rental in Hamilton before the end of November. 2 bedrooms. I know because my mother told me 3 weeks after the lobby when she called, not to argue, but to talk. That was harder than the lobby. She cried. She said she hadn't understood what they had planned. She said she should have asked more questions when my brother told her I'd moved on and the house was theirs now. She said she was sorry, and I believed her, because my mother is many things, but she has never been deliberately cruel. I didn't tell her it was fine, because it wasn't fine entirely. What I said was, I believe you, and I'm not angry at you. Then I said the thing I'd been turning over in my head for weeks. I need you to understand something. I don't regret buying the house. I don't regret letting them stay there. What I regret is not trusting what I was already noticing when things started to shift. And going forward, I have to be more careful about what I give. Not because I'm selfish, but because I've learned that some people will take a kindness and use it as leverage. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, I know. I should have seen it sooner. That was enough. It's February now. I'm in Liberty Village. The city outside is doing what Toronto does in February, which is remind you that spring is theoretical. I've got good light, a warm apartment, $284,000. I didn't have 6 months ago, and a kind of clarity I didn't have before any of this started. People ask me sometimes, when they hear the story, whether the silence felt like cruelty, whether walking away that November night was giving up dressed as strategy, whether I should have just fought it immediately and saved everyone the trouble. Honestly, no, on all of it. I stayed silent because I knew exactly what the noise would cost me. My brother has always been good at conflict, at escalating, at performing, at being the one who looks wronged even when he isn't. If I had knocked on that door the night I found my things in the garage, there would have been a scene on the front lawn of my own house. And by the next morning, the group chat would have been full of screenshots and half-truths, and I would have been the villain in a story where I'd been the one who bought the house to begin with. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the longest distance between a problem and its solution. And it takes more discipline to walk it quietly than to react. What I feel now isn't anger. The anger dissolved faster than I expected once everything was settled. I think because anger is often just urgency looking for an exit, and once the thing is resolved, it doesn't have anywhere left to go. What I feel is something closer to lightness, like I'd been carrying something I didn't even realize had weight to it. And one day I set it down and noticed how different my hands felt. I set it down. If you've ever come home to find that someone you trusted had quietly, methodically tried to take what was yours, I want you to know. You don't have to be loud to be right. You don't have to burn anything down. Sometimes you just have to wait, let them make their move, and trust that the paperwork will say everything you don't need to. What would you have done? Would you have knocked on that door right then? Or would you have picked up your bags and played it long? Tell me in the comments. And tell me what city you're watching from. I always want to know how far these stories reach.